Welcome everybody. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to do a little Zoom housekeeping. I know that you're all quite familiar with the way this works, but I'm going to say hello in the chat box, and if somebody can just say hello back so we know we're broadcasting. We're coming to you today from me in Park City, Utah. Jeff is in Miami, and our friend Terry is in New York City. So thank you all for joining us today. The Family Office Insights community has been extraordinary through these interesting and fun times, and challenging, of course. And thank you for saying hello back there. We are broadcasting live. I want to give you a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to start the webinar with a few introductions. Then we're going to play a little video, and then we're going to go into the formal pitch with Terry talking about the opportunity and background, and it's actually something very cool for me, because I'm so involved in music, in enjoying it, not playing with it. And of course, I have a son that many of you know is a music education major and singer and plays instruments and quite well. And so it's been fascinating to hear Terry's background and this exciting project that you're going to hear about today. Please feel free to ask questions. We're going to answer them at the end, but please don't hesitate to put them in the chat box or the Q&A, depending on how you've connected with us today. So again, welcome. I'm going to hand it off to Jeffrey to say a few words, and then we're going to play a little video. And Jeff, for the record, everybody, some of you aren't familiar, but Jeff and I have been friends for quite a long period of time. I think it's been like 15 or 16 years. And so we're full disclosure, we're good friends, but despite what everybody says about him, he is a good guy. And we've enjoyed a very, very good relationship. And he is the catalyst to introducing Terry to me and the Family Office Insights community and all of you. So thank you again. Jeff, take it away.
Well, thank you, Arthur. I think that was a very nice introduction. I appreciate it immensely. I want to welcome everybody to attend today. I think that you will be regaled by hearing from Terry, not just about the future, but the past, because his story is quite riveting. In fact, he's a member of an organization that I'm chairman and founder of called the Strategic Forum. And the first time I really sat down with him at lunch, I said, well, tell me your story. And I was so taken by the history of how it all happened and what happened, and some of the stories about some of the very famous people that we all know, or even cherished for their skill sets and their ability. And I just walked away saying, wow, it was just so cool. But then when he shared with me his vision, and the original company started as one thing, and it was a vision, but it ultimately turned into this monolith in the music industry. And he shared with what he wanted to do, and I said, oh my God, I want to go to this. I would absolutely go to this. I'd like to help you. I'd like to help you. So with that being said, I guess I proselytized him that he aligned with me, and I'm actually representing him and helping him achieve the goal of turning what he's doing now into a reality. It's going to take some time because it's to be built. But without going into the story myself, I'll turn it back to you, Arthur, and perhaps you could just say a couple things and play the tape. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to play this, and I would ask that you gather around your computer and watch this, because it's super well done, and it frames out the story quite well. So this, just let me know if you can see it, Terry and Jeff.
Not yet.
No?
Here we go. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Terry Ellis, co-founder of Chrysalis Records. My partner, Chris Wright, and I started Chrysalis Music in my bedroom in London, England in 1967 when I was 24 years old. We were inspired and motivated by the great music of that era and the musicians and songwriters who seemed to be inventing a whole new to represent some of those artists. We were involved with many aspects of the rock music business. We were the UK agents for Led Zeppelin and promoted some of their concerts. We were music publishers for David Bowie. I was the manager of Jethro Tull and co-produced their early records with Ian Anderson. We were in the recording studio business with Sir George Martin, the Beatles producer. Eventually, we started Chrysalis Records. I moved to the US and signed Blondie, Billy Idol, Pat Benatar, and Huey Lewis and the News to the company. Years later, the spirit of rock music is still alive and well in me. And I am planning to launch Chrysalis Orchestra, which I hope to be the most exciting new live music stage show to hit the road in the United States in decades. We've all read that in today's music market, record sales have declined drastically. According to figures published by the Recording Industry Association of America, revenues from recorded music in the United States in 2018 were about 70% of what they were in 2000. But the demand for live music concerts seems to have increased dramatically. Polestar magazine tells us that revenues from ticket sales in 2018 were nearly 5 times what they were in 2000. It seems to me that people have been taking the money they used to spend on records and they're spending it on tickets, and that the live music concert industry has become an exciting growth market. I believe that the opportunity now lies in the older demographic and the all ages market that appears to be underserved by a music industry focusing on the youth market. I feel that there is a public appetite for dynamic and accessible orchestra shows. Just look at the success of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which performs an arena tour in North America for the 6 weeks of the Christmas festive season each year. I'm planning for Chrysalis Orchestra to comprise 40 of the finest young classically trained musicians playing orchestral reinterpretations of the great compositions of the rock era. Songs like Stairway to Heaven, Hotel California, Satisfaction. Just imagine hearing a 40-piece orchestra play the music of our favorite rock stars like David Bowie, Queen, or Fleetwood Mac. We aim to select our musicians for their love of rock music, for their ability to both play and perform, and for their potential to develop into individual stars. Chrysalis Orchestra doesn't plan to have screaming guitars or drum kits, but all the majesty of a symphony orchestra with the full-on energy and presence of a rock group. We expect that an evening with Chrysalis Orchestra will be highly entertaining. As we envision it, the musicians won't be sitting reading charts, but they'll be standing, moving, clapping, dancing, and interacting with the audience. It will be an evening of music and stories. We plan for 2 MCs to be on the stage between musical pieces, discussing the songs, putting them into context, and illustrating them with anecdotes about the writers and performers. Initially, I plan to be one of the MCs, along with Grammy-winning producer Peter Asher. Between us, Peter and I know or knew most of the stars of the rock era and have great stories to tell. We would introduce some humor and bring the show together as a cohesive piece of entertainment, making it interesting and fun. Peter is one of the many prominent professionals in the music industry on our team. International concert promoter Harvey Goldsmith, Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull, and Vivek Tiwari, the Broadway producer of Jagged Little Pill, have already given invaluable advice. In time, we would aim to launch a second touring orchestra with a more pop repertoire, a permanent Las Vegas orchestra, and an international touring orchestra. Once we've established the brand internationally, our plan will be to develop permanent orchestras in Europe, Japan, China, and the Middle East. Currently, we expect to showcase the orchestra at the end of 2021, have our first tour at the end of 2022, and then embark on a full touring schedule of up to 100 shows a year in 2023. As I see it, Chrysalis Orchestra could change the world of rock music and orchestral performance forever. I envision this as rock reimagined. Pretty exciting, huh?
Beautiful. You know, every time I see that, I got to figure out how to stop this. Hold on. Although it's nice music. Every time I see that, Terry, I get inspired again. And I have to tell
Me
you,
too, Arthur.
I like seeing you on video as much as I like seeing you in person. So for many of you, we had a little private gig last week where in the Family Office Insights Luminary series had a chance to hear the stories, a few of the stories, and Terry shared with us. So that was, it's been exciting. I'm excited for you. Please, everybody, thank you for being here and welcome Terry Ellis. Terry, take it away.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to everybody today. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you. I'm here in New York City on a nice sunny day with a little chill in the air. I'm joined by my associate, Jeff Michel, who's in Florida on an equally sunny day with no chill in the air. So let's start. You know, we're living through some dark times, but one thing all of us know is that these dark times will come to an end. And one thing that investors know is that even in the darkest of times, provided you can look ahead to the sunny days that will inevitably come, there are tremendous opportunities to be had. And we believe that Chrysalis Orchestra is one of those opportunities. And I feel that opportunities are something that are a major factor in our lives and in our business. It's certainly been that way for me. And I think there are three things about the opportunities. Number one, you have to put yourself in a position where opportunities come your way. Number two, you have to recognize the opportunities when they come. And number three, you have to take advantage of them. And certainly taking advantage of one of those opportunities is what got me into the music business in the first place. I'm English, as you can tell. I was brought up in a small town just 20 miles north of London, and I was a big music fan. And I loved Elvis, and I loved Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, Fats Domino. I loved that music. But you know, the idea of a career in music was very, very far from my mind. I had an aptitude towards numbers, and I saw my future in the computer industry. But then I went to college. I was the first person in my family to ever go to college. And I went off to college at Newcastle University in the north of England. And well, you know, I guess in my first year, I did what all small town boys do when they go for the first time to the big city. I went kind of nuts. So for my first year at college, I studied beer, I studied girls, and occasionally I studied a little science. But at the end of that year, I realized that what I had here in the opportunity to study at a university wasn't just an opportunity to get a great education, but it was an opportunity to get the full college experience, and it was an opportunity that I couldn't afford to miss. So what I did was I went to the president of the Students' Union. Now, I'm not quite sure how it is here in the US, but in the UK, the life in a British university revolves around the Students' Union, which is a building that has restaurants, bars, entertainment facilities, study rooms, library, everything to keep a student busy and happy when he's not in classes. And it's run by students. So I went to the president of the Students' Union and said, listen, I want to get the full college experience. I want to help. I want to make a difference. I want to do whatever I can to help. Give me a job. Whatever you've got, I'm up for it. I'll do it. Now, I suppose if he'd asked me to reorganize the college, the union dining facilities, I would have been really happy with that. And hey, maybe I would even ended up as a chef or running a chain of restaurants, who knows? But he didn't offer me that job. He said, you know, actually the only job that we've got to have available, Terry, is running entertainment. Because all of a sudden, now remember this is 1963, this is the year of Beatlemania, the first year of Beatlemania in the UK. So he said, you know, the students all of a sudden want these pop groups to come and play in the Students' Union. And we have no idea how to do that. So if you want a job, it's yours. So I said, well, you know, I have no idea how to do that either, but I asked for a job. If that's the job, fine, I'll take it. So my job was, there was a small ballroom, about 400 people capacity in the Students' Union. My job was to book a pop group in there every Saturday night. So I did my research. I found there was a very popular local group called the Alan Price Rhythm and Blues Combo. And I found a manager who was a local club owner up there in Newcastle. And I arranged for the Alan Price Rhythm and Blues Combo to come and play for me on my first 2 Saturday nights in charge. After they played for me, the second night, they went down to London. They changed their name to the Animals. They recorded House of the Rising Sun and became incredibly successful. So my first 2 Saturday nights in charge, I had the Animals playing for me. So that was a pretty good start. And so I went on and was in charge for a year, booking bands, and it was enormously successful. You know, I was able to find some terrific, you know, bands in their early stages. No one had heard of them. They were pretty cheap because I didn't have much of a budget, but a lot of the bands that I booked became very, very successful. I had one band I booked from Birmingham called the Jimmy Powell and the Five Dimensions. He had a harmonica player in the band, and the harmonica player's name was Rod Stewart. And he went on to do quite well. I had a band called the Graham Bond Organization. He had Jack Bruce on bass and Ginger Baker on drums. And this was before they met Eric Clapton and formed Cream. So this was a very successful year. I absolutely loved what I was doing. And by the end of that year, I'd fallen in love, not so much with the music business, but with the show, with putting on the show. And I just found that I was in awe of the musicians that had come to play for me. And I'd stand at the side of the stage with my jaw hanging down, just in awe of their ability. And I'm not a musician myself, so, but I had just decided that I wanted to be part of this world. I wanted to work with musicians. I wanted to see if I could help them. So when I graduated, I decided that I wanted to start my own booking agency. An insane idea. I mean, I had no money, I had nothing. I just graduated from college. But in my years of college, I had got to know the Animals manager quite well. And so I talked to him and he said, listen, he said, Terry, I have an idea. He He said, my business is going really well. The Animals are very successful in America. I've just signed a new management client, a young American guitarist called Jimi Hendrix. I've opened an office in London. Why don't you come down and work with me in my office in London, and we can be partners in a booking agency. Now, my parents did not think this was a very good idea. But for me, this was a great opportunity. And I just jumped at it. And I went down to London. This man's name was Michael Jeffrey. I worked with Michael Jeffrey for a year in the heart of London's Tin Pan Alley. I learned an enormous amount. One of the things I learned was how hard the music business is, how tough it is, how competitive it is. In fact, it was so tough that, you know, some of what I did was successful, but not successful enough. And at the end of that year, I wasn't making enough money, and so I had to go and get a job. So I took a job as a computer systems analyst, but I was determined to pursue my dream of working in the music business. And one of the things I learned was that if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you better find something that you do better than anybody else. And really, there was only one thing I knew anything about, and that was booking bands into colleges. So I started a little part-time agency in my evenings and weekends, organizing entertainment for colleges. So on my weekends, I'd drive in the little car my mother had helped me buy and go to see colleges and see the social secretaries and try to persuade them that I was the man to help them organize their entertainment and book their bands for them. And I got a small commission for doing that. After a year, I was making enough money from that to give up my day job, which was, when I say enough money, it was a very small amount of money. I had a very low overhead. I lived in a tiny little studio apartment in a rather seedy part of London and operated this business out of my bedroom. But then I had to make a decision. So I liked the computer business, but I loved the music business. I knew I'd be financially secure in the computer business, and I knew that I would not be financially secure in the music business, but I loved it. So I made the decision. I gave up the day job and went full time in this little booking agency, operating, as I said, out of my bedroom. Soon after that, I met a chap called Chris Wright, who was in Manchester, and he was doing the same thing that I was doing, booking bands into colleges. We decided that rather than competing with each other, we'd be better off joining forces. And so we came together. We called ourselves Chrysalis, the Chrysalis Agency, which the name came from his first name, Chris, my second name, Ellis. And so there were then two of us working out of my bedroom, and he didn't have anywhere to stay, so he slept on the floor. And that was the beginning of Chrysalis. So very quickly, we became the biggest college booking agency in the UK. We were able to move into a tiny little one-room office in the middle of London. And because of our prominence in college booking, we came to people's attention and opportunities came our way. And our biggest break was one day the door burst open and this huge guy walked through the door, really terrifying looking guy, 6'6", fat, long greasy hair, big beard, terrifying. But anyway, he introduced himself and said his name was Peter Grant, who this was a very famous manager. He explained that he was the manager of Jeff Beck. And he said, listen, I've got Jeff Beck with the biggest agency in England. And he said, I've been looking at you two guys. I've been watching you. You're good. When I look at Jeff's date sheet, most of his work is coming from you. So why don't you become his agents? I'll take him away from the biggest agent in the UK and give him to you. Well, this was kind of mind-boggling to us, but what an opportunity, which of course we grabbed, and we became Jeff Beck's agent. A little while later, Peter came back in the office and said, listen, you guys are doing a fantastic job for Jeff. I'm really pleased. He's really pleased. I've got a new band. I also manage the Yardbirds. And the Yardbirds are going to break up. They've been very successful. They've got individual projects they want to pursue. So they're going to break up. But there's a new guitarist in the band. He wants to carry on. So he is going to form a completely new band, and they're going to call it the New Yardbirds. And I want you to be the agents. Well, for us, any band that was managed by Peter was fine with us. And, the New Yardbirds sounded great. So we became the agents. We started booking dates for the New Yardbirds. Peter took the band in the studio, made an album, took it to Atlantic Records in New York. They said, this is the best thing we've ever heard, but you've got to change that name. New Yardbirds is terrible. So they changed their name from the New Yardbirds to Led Zeppelin. So all of a sudden, there we are, two kids recently out of college in a tiny little office, one-room office, and we've just become the agents for the band that's about to become the biggest rock and roll band in the world, which is pretty amazing. I mean, heady stuff. But we used that opportunity, and we built, on the back of being Jeff Beck's agent and the Led Zeppelin's agent, we built a big, one of the biggest artist representing agencies in the UK. So we represented also Yes, Procol Harum, King Crimson, Roxy Music, Supertramp, and T-Rex, and many others. And again, because we became a big booking agency, other opportunities came our way. We had some small, up-and-coming acts that we liked on our roster, and two of those came to us and asked us if we'd become their managers. Now, for me, this was another fantastic opportunity, because what I really wanted to do was to work closely with musicians. And as an agent, you don't really work that closely with the musician. You're booking dates. As a manager, you can be totally involved, and that's really what I wanted. So Chris became manager of 10 Years After, and I became manager of Jethro Tull. Now, as managers, and these were bands that were just on the ground floor. I mean, Jethro Tull at the time was earning maybe 10, 15 pounds a night as a backup band as a second on the bill in London clubs. But, we clearly thought both these bands had tremendous potential. As managers, we wanted to get record deals for our artists, not to make money, because records didn't sell very well in those days and the royalties were terrible. But the important thing about having a record deal was that a record was a marketing tool. The record company was a marketing company. So if you got a record out, then the record company will get you play on the radio, they will get you articles in newspapers and magazines, and that all helped to promote the shows, which is where we made our money. The more promotion there was, the more people came to the shows, and the more money we made. So we made a deal for 10 Years After with one of the major English record companies, and it was a big disappointment to us. They didn't do the job that we expected them to do, and we just felt it was very important for us as managers to have the kind of control that we wanted over our marketing. And so the only way that we could see to do that was to start our own record company. So my first idea was that I would take Jethro Tull in the studio and produce their first record. Now, I'd never been in a recording studio, so this was a pretty crazy idea, but I managed to talk my partner into the idea, but he said, Terry, okay, I'll go along with the idea, but there's just one problem. And I said, well, what's that? He said, well, we haven't got any money. We can't afford to make a record. Now, I said, actually, Chris, you're right. We don't. So I got in my car and I drove down. We had our banker was a little country banker, about 20 miles outside of London, where I was born. And I drove down in an evening in my little car and took the bank manager a bottle of his favorite scotch and talked him into lending us £500. This is the first and only time I've ever had to borrow money. And I borrowed £500 to make a record and launch Jethro Tull. And so that worked out pretty well. And really, the bank manager, he should never have done it. He should never have lent us that money. If it hadn't worked out, he'd have lost his job. But it actually worked out incredibly well for him as well, because we were so grateful that we kept our business with him. And eventually we became his biggest client, and he got promotions and bonuses over the years because we were his client. So it worked out well for him as well. So I made the record. It came out. It went top 10 in the UK first week. And all of a sudden we were in the record business. We recorded some of the other artists that we managed, and we launched the Chrysalis label. It became successful in the UK, and so I then decided we really needed to have our own American record company. So I moved in the early 70s. I moved to Los Angeles and launched Chrysalis Records in America, and that gave me the ability to sign Blondie, Pat Benatar, Billy Idol, Huey Lewis and the News. And of course, Jethro Tull went on to become an enormous act. So by the mid-80s, we've become one of the most powerful and successful independently owned record companies in the world. And along with that came lots of other opportunities. And we found that, because we were a successful record company, lots of doors opened. People wanted to do business with us. And so, we went into all kinds of other businesses. Lots of opportunities opened up. We started our own music publishing company, and we signed David Bowie to a publishing deal. We became concert promoters. We promoted all of Led Zeppelin's UK concerts. We were introduced to George Martin, who was the Beatles producer, and we became good friends, and we went into partnership with George in the recording studio business. We produced some made-for-television movies for CBS in the UK, in the US. We developed the iconic music series Max Headroom. So, what we found was, if you place yourself in the position where opportunities come along and you recognize the opportunities and you take advantage of them, then your business can develop in a way that you never even imagined. And Jeff and I see Chrysalis Orchestra in very much the same way. Chrysalis Orchestra, I think, is very timely. I think that, bizarrely enough, COVID works well for us. Clearly, nobody is going to concerts right now, but they will. There will be a vaccine, whether the vaccine is this month, whether it's the spring, whether it comes along in the summer, but there will be a vaccine, and then people will feel safe, and we'll be going back to concerts. And when it's safe to go back, there's going to be such an enormous pent-up demand for people to go to concerts and see music, as well as sports events as well. And we will be ready for them. Now, our business plan calls for, the first year of business, we'll be putting the orchestra together. We'll be auditioning and rehearsing the orchestra. We'll be getting the arrangements written. We'll be developing the touring infrastructure that we need. And so we won't even be ready to do our first showcase concerts until the end of 2021 at the earliest. And we don't see ourselves doing, in our business plan, we don't do our first revenue earning concert tour until the end of 2022, by which time I think everybody accepts we're going to be pretty much back to normal. So we see this as being very timely and very exciting. What is even more exciting than the concept of the orchestra, which I'm absolutely thrilled about, and everybody we talk to is thrilled about it too, but it's where the orchestra can lead us. And what I learned through Chrysalis Records is, as I said earlier, opportunities open up to you. Some opportunities which you hope would open up, and some opportunities which you never even imagined would open up. And we see that very much with Chrysalis Orchestra. We're planning to build a scalable brand. We see there being more than one orchestra. I mean, there's more than one Trans-Siberian Orchestra. There's more than one Blue Man Group. There's more than one Cirque du Soleil. because those are brands, and there'll be more than one Chrysalis Orchestra. We see ourselves as having two touring orchestras in the United States. We expect there to be a permanent Las Vegas orchestra, an international touring orchestra. And the revenues from those are clearly mainly from ticket sales and from merchandising, selling T-shirts, records, etc., and from brand sponsorship. But we'll also make records, so we'll have another revenue stream from selling records and from streaming. We see ourselves licensing our music for television commercials, for TV programs, for movies, creating another revenue stream. We will record music. We see ourselves recording not just some of the great compositions that everybody's familiar with, but we'll record some original music where we control the publishing. So we'll have a publishing revenue. We see ourselves developing some of the musicians in the orchestra into stars in their own right and spinning them off into their own careers, creating another source of revenue. And we also, having orchestras on the road, will be able to discover young, exciting young singers and develop their career by putting them on the road with the orchestras. So these are the areas that we anticipate, but there are so many other areas of opportunity, of revenue, that we probably don't even know about today. I mean, we certainly can see ourselves, will be television opportunities. A couple of things I never even thought of. When we first started this, we've been approached by a streaming company who wants to stream our concerts to people who don't have the opportunity to get to a concert hall, another revenue source. We've been approached by another company that wants to work with us to create original programming for classic rock radio stations, something I never even dreamed of, but there's, again, another revenue source. And there'll be other opportunities that haven't opened up, that we can't even imagine that will open up to us. So what we see ourselves doing is developing a multifaceted music business with multiple revenue sources, and developing a business that can be an extremely powerful force in the music industry. This is going to be a lot of fun, without question. It's going to be a lot of fun for us. It's going to be a lot of fun for all our investors. But as well as being a lot of fun, it's going to be, it has the potential to be enormously profitable. So with that, I'm very excited, as you could tell, very excited indeed. I see enormous potential. So I'm now going to hand over to Jeff, who's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the investment aspects of the business.
Thank you, Terry. Once again, it's always great hearing the story. I know it well now, and it's pretty amazing what you've accomplished. I'll just chime in that there's an expression, maybe hackneyed, but really true, relative to making investments and looking at companies and making a bet. You got to always bet on the jockey. The jockey is always the one that's going to make it happen or not. The difference between Terry now and Terry when he was 20 years old, that could have wound up being a chef. He got a job in the kitchen. Is Terry built Chrysalis, and all the opportunities that ensued started because the first opportunity happened, and then he was in the game. That knowledge, that experience, combined with the years of relationships that he's developed, now put him in a position to start something that's so needed. We understand things are shut down right now, but when they turn on, the pent-up demand for people to regale themselves, to go to concerts, to do something, will be overflowing. So I think to a certain extent, we're actually in a very fortuitous position, because it's going to take a year of construct to build the musicians, to set everything up. And we're not looking to launch that first orchestra till the end of 2022, where it'll be a touring orchestra, and then other things will kick in. 5-6 years from now, this will be a very, very valuable company. And the person that makes a bet today is making a really smart bet. So those of you that would like to chat with us, certainly have the wherewithal to reach out, please do. Love to meet you, love to talk to you, and pursue your possibility of becoming a partner and investor in what I think is a phenomenal opportunity. I'm wondering if there's any questions that some of you would like to ask. Arthur, maybe you want to chime in and
We have, thank you, Terry and Jeff. I'm going to repeat myself again, but hearing the story, Terry, again, still inspiring. I'm excited too, and excited for both of you guys. And since, if you didn't hear it, Terry learned a lesson is when an opportunity presents itself, take the opportunity, which is what we're suggesting that you do here today. So I can say that out loud. So we got a bunch of questions. Let's start with this one while you answered part of it. How many touring orchestras could there be? And that might...
How many?
Yeah, how many? So I'm not sure whether it's how many you're going to have or how many there could be in the ecosystem of the world, and still, but maybe just answer the question of how many you think you'll have.
Well, initially, we can see 4 orchestras. We can see the potential for 4 orchestras. But, down the road, there could be permanent orchestras in different parts of the world. I suppose the simple answer to the question is imagine how many Cirque du Soleil outfits that there are around the world. I'm not sure, but there are a lot. It depends on the demand, but it's a brand, it's a scalable brand, and there can be as many as the demand allows.
Yep, that totally makes sense. So this is that was by the way, Peter Wagner asking, and our good friend Stuart Bullard has got a question. He says, Terry, at what age are you starting the artist with the orchestra? As a producer and musician of 13 instruments fluently, I started on the violin at age 5 with through the Pittsburgh Symphony Youth Program for Gifted Kids. I happen to know Stuart, and he is gifted. Will you add themed? So that's the first question. What age do you see the performers starting?
Well, we don't have an age group in mind, but everybody will, before they can audition, they have to be a graduate of one of the music schools. So, we're talking a minimum of 22, and beyond that, one of the exciting things about the orchestra is being able to give the opportunity for young classically trained musicians to find work. Not just to find work, but to find an opportunity to express themselves. And it's really an opportunity for people who are very ambitious and want to do something special with their lives and with their careers. And one of the things, one of the sad things about the classical music field is that it is sad, it is kind of dying. And there are lots of brilliant musicians who are graduating from music schools every year, fully equipped to jump into any symphony orchestra and do themselves proud, but there's just no work.
Yeah,
The numbers I've been given are, for every 10 graduating musicians, there's one job, and other people say, no, that's, it's many fewer than that. I don't know, but it's such a shame because these kids are so good and they're just not getting the opportunity to work. And I'm excited about being able to give them that opportunity.
Yeah, they are good too. There's so many. Stuart, as a quick follow on, will you add themed entertainment around the performers?
What we want to do is to try to, to take an evening with Chrysalis Orchestra to be something more than a concert. We have some ideas of how to do that, but we'd like people to think if they're going. One of the ideas that we have is that most people, when they go to a concert, they drive. Not if you're in New York, but anywhere else. If you're in a big city, of course, it's different. But most of the people drive to concerts. And we have an idea to have actually a radio station, our own radio station, where people, as they drive to the concert, can listen to interviews going on backstage at the concert, almost like you know, the sports events have the pre-game show and the post-game show. So we have this idea of having a pre-concert show that you can listen to on your driving in your car to the concert. And so we're trying to make it as an evening out rather than just a concert.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So I'm going to ask these in order. Arthur Masowski, have you thought about technology to bring the concerts directly into the homes? And he offers that he has a technology that might be able to help.
Well, we have thought about that. We've been approached by a streaming company that is doing just that. They're already busy doing opera, ballet, and so on, broadcasting those into. And their idea is to be able to broadcast into homes or into small theaters,
arenas or something. Yeah.
Where people who don't have access to a theater, aren't close enough to a town where the orchestra is touring, we'll be able to beam straight into either a small theater or even into somebody's home. So that's something that we've been approached to do that. Somebody wants to make a deal to do that already for us. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So here's a comment and a question by Joanna. Music is such a powerful force for good. It's an international language. Will there be an outreach social purpose to the company? It could be a powerful attractor to more philanthropic investors.
I think that, again, to me, the most exciting, I think there are all kinds of good things that can come out from this. Before rock and roll came along, all popular music was played by orchestras. When rock and roll came along, it brought with it the pop group. And so this was kind of a boon for promoters because previously they were hiring orchestras to play, and they're having to hire 20 or 30 people. When the pop groups came along, they only had to hire 4 or 5 people. So this was more profitable. So the popular orchestra went out of fashion and pretty much disappeared. So what we have is at least 2 generations of popular music fans who've never even seen an orchestra play. And they don't understand, how wonderful the instruments of the orchestra are. And I mean, probably most people would recognize an oboe if they heard it, because they hear it on movie soundtracks and so on. But most people, you ask them what an oboe looked like, they wouldn't have the slightest idea. So I think it will be exciting. It's exciting to me to be able to introduce people, popular music lover, because to see an orchestra play these days, you pretty much have to go to the symphony, and popular music lovers don't necessarily like classical music, so they're robbed of the opportunity to see and hear the excitement of an orchestra. And I think that this is one of the benefits. I think we can change the cultural landscape and allow popular music lovers to become much more familiar with the wonders of these great instruments.
Perfect. Thank you, Terry. Okay, so a couple of finance type questions. This is from Nathan. What is the cost annually of producing the touring company? Also, what is your strategy on merchandising?
I think I worked out that it's about 75,000. There's not an annual cost because most of the cost is a daily cost. Your costs. We don't have a big overhead. We have we would have a very small overhead. Our big costs are when we actually go on the road and staff up to go on the road with the musicians and with all the touring staff. So I calculated, I think, it's about $75,000 a night in costs. Strategy on merchandising is, I think that, with the audience, the kind of audience that we hope to have, which is an all ages audience, which will include an older people who have more money to spend on merchandise. I think we can be more imaginative. Amazingly, the T-shirt is still the most popular merchandising item. I was astounded by that, but because it is incredibly profitable. I mean, they sell T-shirts for $30 and they cost about $5 to make. I mean, it's an incredibly profitable item, and apparently still the most popular item. But I think we can be more imaginative than that. I mean, I think they can maybe a nice quality tour jacket, I think, could sell well to the right customer. So, but I'm certainly open to any suggestions for a merchandising strategy that would help and make sense.
Totally makes sense. T-shirt. Everybody wants a T-shirt. I get it. Also from Nathan, would there be any guest stars as MCs to introduce one of their compositions, like Keith Richards introducing Satisfaction, and how he wrote the riff in his sleep?
I think that we will definitely. I mean, most of the pieces that the orchestra will play, most of them will be orchestral, but not all of them. I mean, we will have vocalists that come on and maybe sing every fourth or fifth number to give variation to the performance, but not sing the songs the way they were originally meant to be sung, but rearranged in an innovative way. We absolutely expect to have guest artists, not just introducing their song, but actually guest artists, well-known artists who are guest artists and are on maybe a third or a half of the show. And I think absolutely the idea of having Keith Richards come on and talk about his song is something we'd love to do. And I think that as the orchestra gains its reputation, people will want to come and do that.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It might be too early for this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Les is asking, what's the startup break even look like?
Jeff?
I don't know what the definition of startup break even means, but before we start generating revenues, it's going to be, first we got to launch the orchestra. So it's anticipated, we have full financials, which really break out how this scales, and also a business summary that shows the operating plan. So rather than address the exact numbers, if there's real interest, we'd be more than glad to share the financials, and Terry will walk through them, or walk together, showing how what we're doing and when it kicks off, and the amount of the first orchestra, what we expect it to do in its first year, and thereafter the additional revenues that will kick in pursuant to the other things that will generate revenue that Terry articulated. But I'd be more than glad to go through those financials if you'd like to take a look at them.
Great, thanks, Jeff. So Scott asks, have you thought about a premium subscription level, like allowing people not only to attend the concerts live, but also have other exclusive member benefits, audio, video, interviews, original music, that sort of thing?
It's a great idea. It's an absolutely terrific idea. Love it.
Yeah, there's lots of people that have recognized that the non-in-person streaming ticket could augment, as it has prior to COVID, in the entertainment business. And I'm not in it, but I've seen the numbers and a couple opportunities that have been presented, and people actually will pay per view, is what they call it, I guess, to see things even if they can't be there. Okay, I think that if we can put a call out for some final questions, if there are any. There was a question from someone, and I can't attribute it because we generally don't let anonymous attendees in, but we got one. So, but I'll answer the question anyway. How do you plan to source your musicians? And so we answered that earlier, but I just wanted to recognize that as a question. And if you know you're anonymous, don't be. Tell us who you are. So how about that? Why don't we do this if it's okay with you guys? Jeff, you want to tell people what they need to do to get in touch? And of course, we're going to connect everybody with you. And then maybe a closing statement from Terry. We have one quick question here, which virtual reality concert. Have you thought about doing, from Nathan, doing a virtual reality concert that is immersive and interactive?
No.
Yeah, that's a good answer. You haven't thought about that, but now you have.
But now the idea has been suggested. We'll give it some thought.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so wait a minute. We got one more here. Hold on. Okay, so it's a repeat of a prior question. What size capacity venues will be chosen? Actually, that's not the repeat.
We'll start in relatively small venues, performing arts centers, between 1,500 and 2,500 seats. I think it's very, very important when you're developing a live performing act, which this is, to start small and build from there. There are a lot of advantages to that. I believe that the two most important words in the live performing lexicon are sold out.
Yeah, I love that.
And there's no more powerful marketing tool than selling out a show. Yeah. So if we could, so we'll start in small places, and as the popularity grows, we'll build, and inevitably we'll end up. We expect to end up in arenas and some amphitheaters and so on. But we expect to take a few years to do that and just build slowly. But that ultimately that's where we'll get. And someone like Trans-Siberian Orchestra only plays arenas. They play 10 to 15,000 seat arenas. And that's where we'll get to eventually.
So that's when we first started talking about that is a serious comp. Can you share with the group what the kind of revenue they experienced on a yearly basis? In the published numbers on Trans-Siberian Orchestra, I mean they tour 6 weeks a year. They have 2 complete units on the road at the same time, because it's a Christmas show, so they can only tour for 6 weeks over the Christmas period. So they have 2 complete units on the road at the same time. They do, on weekends, they do matinees and evenings. And in 6 weeks, the published numbers are that they gross around $50 million. And it's a private company still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Well,
right.
The numbers come from Polestar.
Yeah,
which is a music touring company.
Yeah, close enough.
Magazine.
Yeah, close enough. So, Jeff, I don't want to put you in the corner, but you might want to. I don't think we've talked about it, and I could have missed it. What's your ask from the group, aside from participating? How much you're raising? When are you going to wrap it up?
Well, we're raising a total of $4.5 million. And that will be all the money we think we're going to need to raise, because the projections, really spell out how this thing starts kicking in a lot of revenues. And we have an offering memorandum. And for those people that love to hear or like to hear more on the details, we'd be glad to sit down and talk about it. They can reach out to me vis-a-vis. They have my email address or my telephone number, which I'd be glad to provide. I will just finish off by saying that I said to Terry, we have a tagline for this company. And he said, what's that? I said, you ever see the movie Field of Dreams? he says, yeah, of course. Build it, they will come. And there's no question in my mind. We build it, they will come. And so I'm very excited about it, and welcome anyone that has questions or interest in participating. And we're going full guns ahead to turn this into a tremendous company as we build this thing.
Yeah, super exciting. Thank you for introducing Terry to me and bringing this opportunity to the community. It's really exciting. Of course, I don't know how one would not be excited about it, and I'm not patronizing. I'm just saying it's just such a great idea. So, Terry, you want to have a closing remark, and we have to wrap it up?
Well, you know, as I've said repeatedly, I'm incredibly excited. The potential is there. You know, everything I know about the music business, I did not learn sitting behind a desk. I learned everything I know about the music business from 10 years on the road with Jethro Tull. And what you learn in that time, or what I learned in that time, is if you sit in the audience every night for 10 years, you begin to understand audiences. And you begin to, and that's the kind of the role that I, as one of my roles as a manager, was to ensure that my group, Jethro Tull, were communicating with the audience and that the audience were really enjoying what they were doing. I had to carry that message back to the group. So I had to learn what audiences like. And everything in my being tells me that the audience will love Chrysalis Orchestra. So I'm extremely confident, extremely excited, can't wait to get going, and looking forward to working with anybody who'd like to come on board with us.
Awesome.
Thank you, Arthur.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Terry. Thank you all for being here today and sharing with us the only thing you cannot make more of, and that's your time. I super appreciate it. We're going to publish this in the YouTube channel. We have already published the prior video that we did with Terry last week. You'll love watching that as well. And so we'll make sure everybody's connected to you, Terry and Jeff. And again, thank you for being here. And until next time, ciao.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Arthur. Bye, everybody.